I was used to being a doer and having my hands in everything and knowing what's going on, and to delegate that down is a hard thing to do.
Welcome to Friday Five with Dave Adams. I'm looking forward to speaking with Andy Kempf, CEO of Forefront Credit Union, headquartered in Traverse City. Andy moved to Traverse City in 2013 to become CEO of what was then Members Credit Union. Members Credit Union merged with Bay Winds Federal Credit Union, and Andy worked as president of the combined entity from 2015 until becoming CEO in January of 2020 of Forefront Credit Union. He began his career working in commercial lending with Comerica Bank, worked for several other credit unions in his credit union journey, and we're going to learn a lot more about that here shortly. He's also very active in his credit union community and the broader community. He has been very involved with the credit union chapters he's been a part of. He's an alternate director on the Michigan Credit Union League Board of Directors. He's the CUES Michigan Council chairperson, and he works with young professionals as part of the Fuel Group. Andy is also active with Big Brothers Big Sisters, and he's on the board of Blue Cross Blue Shield of Northern Michigan. Has a wealth of experience, and I was really intrigued by one project in particular where he talks about a project where he focused on helping women in the mountains of Guatemala with a micro-lending program that he's going to talk about in this interview. I know you're going to enjoy this conversation very much with Andy Kempf, CEO of Forefront Credit Union. Andy Kempf, welcome to Friday Five. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Me too. Good to see you, Dave.
Yeah, we were just on a call earlier today with a number of your colleagues, meeting with Congressman Jack Bergman. And I just want to start this session by saying how much I appreciate your personal commitment to advocacy and working with our friends in Northern Michigan to really have an impact. So thank you for that. So let's jump right into this. Yeah, let's talk about your credit union career. I know you started out on the banking side in commercial lending. Maybe track your journey, how you got started in credit unions, up to and including your current stint as CEO of Forefront Credit Union, which, by the way, I might be repeating myself here, but not only is it the largest credit union in Northern Michigan, but it's the largest financial institution headquartered in Northern Michigan. So maybe track through your career journey for us.
Yeah, I talk about being a gypsy around Michigan, but I started out at Comerica in Metro Detroit in commercial lending. And I was in there for a few years back in the early to mid 90s, and then I decided that wasn't what I loved doing, and I'll be honest, I dumb lucked my way into credit unions. My dad had been at credit unions before, so I know who they were, but I just wanted to get on the financial side of companies, and Tom Reagan and telecom took a chance on me, and honestly, I haven't looked back. I started out there as a financial analyst at telecom. They brought me in to do ALM. So that was back, if you remember the late 90s when credit unions were really just starting to bring that stuff in-house. So they brought me in to do that. So came in at ALM doing that. With telecom, I was there, 4 or 5 years, maybe 6 years, and then moved off to Michigan Catholic as a VP of Finance. You can start telling how old I am. I'm using names of people that aren't around anymore. So telecom is now Vibe, Michigan Catholic is now Alliance Catholic. And I was there for a little while, and then if you know me long enough, you'll find out who really runs the family. And we were in Metro Detroit, and my wife and I are both from the west side of the state. So back around 2006, 2007, she said, hey, I'm taking the kids and moving back to Grand Rapids. We would love you to join us. That'd be fantastic if you would. However, if not, we'll make do. So I actually left the industry for a little bit at that point, moving over there as a CFO at a company, distribution company, and I quickly found out that credit unions are the place to be. So I found my way back into Preferred Credit Union in Greenville. Started there in 2010, and then 2013 I ended up here in Traverse City at that time Members Credit Union before we merged in with Bay Winds to become Forefront. That was a Traverse City is a place that we'd been looking to get to. Again, I told my wife I was offered a job and I needed to negotiate, and her words were, "Don't lose it." So that changes the way you can negotiate. And so we're in Traverse City, and now she's let me know she's found home. So I'm allowed to stay here and keep working, which is fantastic because we found home. Forefront is fantastic. Northern Michigan is a fantastic place to be. So that's a pretty brief snippet of what we've done in credit unions.
Well, that's quite a journey. It sounds like as a side hobby, you could almost write a travel book. For Michigan, you've lived in Detroit Metro and Oakland County and Novi and Grand Rapids and now Traverse City.
Yep.
But what a beautiful part of our state up in Traverse City. And I've watched what was previously Members Credit Union and now Forefront, and the growth both through mergers and organically. You have a great story for what your credit union has achieved and what it's still achieving now. So throughout the course of that, you're one of the I won't call you a rising star because you're already a star, but you're one of the younger leaders in our industry in terms of having done all those different positions that you referenced. You've only been CEO there at Forefront since January of this year, but having held a number of CEO positions and leadership positions in other credit unions, it gives you some unique perspectives, especially when you talk about Preferred Credit Union being a little bit of a smaller credit union relative to where you're at now. So with all those different experiences, and you think of leadership as you look at it, what are a couple of the valuable leadership lessons that you've learned or principles that you think are particularly important for credit union leaders today?
Credit union leaders is to be flexible. So that's one of the biggest things that I've learned. But starting out young and going to leadership and what I'm working with folks now, because we have a relatively young management staff, is delegation. Coming from when I was at Preferred, we're about $50 million now. Now we're at about $700 million, and that whole world is different. And I was used to being a doer and having my hands in everything and knowing what's going on, and to delegate that down is a hard thing to do. And so we have a young staff that's coming up. They're a bunch of doers, and to convince them that, you know what, you just need to step back, be strategic, and delegate that down. Not only does it help our sanity, but it helps the staff that's coming up underneath them. They embrace it. They enjoy having that freedom to make decisions, to do some things, and then we get really efficient. The other thing that I learned is I'd like to be transparent, but learning how to communicate in every place I've been in enough places, right, wrong, or indifferent, that communication is always an issue. But learning to put context into communication has been extremely important. And especially in today's COVID world, I found myself ended up doing a daily CEO update to our staff from roughly March 13th to roughly June 15th, and that was hard work. But I wanted to keep stopping it, and the staff kept saying, "No, we love it," and they appreciate the communication. So being able to be transparent while giving context to why we're doing what we're doing, especially in the fluid world we were in that March, April, May timeframe was fantastic, and that is something that it took me a while to learn, but finally figured it out.
A couple of great nuggets there. I know I've really considered that balancing act throughout my career of delegation and doing it well and doing it right, regardless of the size of the organization. Sometimes we have a tendency, especially if we've started in smaller organizations, to really want to be as hands-on as we can be, especially if we're perfectionists. And as you referenced, though, as you get into a larger organization like yours with 700 million in assets and 90,000 members, you have to not only be able to delegate properly, but you mentioned empowerment and how you have to be able to trust people to do the job. So what are your thoughts on that more specifically, just empowerment? What are some of the important facets of that?
Yeah, that was a hard thing for me to figure out. And then to your point, perfectionism, just wanted to get things done and know that they're getting done the way I wanted them done, as opposed to what may or may not have been the right way, but it's the way I wanted to get it done, darn it. But that empowerment is fantastic. Our retention rate here is is above industry. When we do our analysis, we use Compies and the products from CUSG, and we can do some analysis on turnover. And we see that our turnover is a little less, and we do attribute that from employee surveys to the fact that we do empower and we do push it down, and we let the middle management staff make a lot of decisions with a lot of freedom to be able to do what they want to do. We have obviously we have a little bit of leash, some reins on them, but we're figuring out how to put the boundaries together and letting them run within those boundaries. And due to that, we have found some fantastic up-and-comers, where people that were a little bit of a wallflower, once you give them the ability and the authority to make a few decisions, that they really start to shine. And so we've been able to do some promotions that's been fantastic internally from folks that we may have overlooked before until we gave them a project to work on. So it's we're a big fan of empowerment. It does take a whole lot of intestinal fortitude for us to have that trust factor, but that's a function of humankind, and I'm proud of my staff for being able to get comfortable with that.
Yeah, fostering that mutual trust and respect and creating that environment for empowerment is not only really the only way for a CEO to achieve success, but it creates so many opportunities for other staff, as you said. And then it also struck me when you were talking about, whether it's a crisis like the one we're in, or whether there are some controversial things happening, the commitment to communication, and you talk about a daily communication. I can see the merits to that, but I can also see the real commitment on your part. Give us some sense of the types of things that you're talking about in your daily communications, or that you had been talking about.
Yeah, well, I've moved daily off to biweekly because everybody said that they really didn't want it to go away. So I've moved that off to biweekly, but it's really pretty formulaic. I usually give a brief quip, snippet, try to make a joke as funny as a dad can be, I suppose. But try and make a joke about my family or just the world in general. Give some sort of obscure facts of some sort, and then I move into, especially back in the time of April and May, but even now I do an economic update of what we've seen recently. I do a COVID update of what's going on in COVID, and then I do how that affects Forefront and what Forefront's going to do. So it is a very formulaic process that we go through, and it's when I do it, because I'm looking for some obscure facts and data, it can take an hour to 2 hours for me to get through the whole process. But actually, I just got an email while just before we started here of somebody thanking me for the one on Friday, just talking about that was before the executive order or the Supreme Court had come out, but just talking about where we stand as a corporation, what COVID's doing, and what we're going to do moving forward, and how we're moving into the winter, as we're going to have more and more concerns with people being sick, and just giving the authority to, if you're sick, stay home. And I'm the biggest hypocrite. I tell them that I used to come in sick all the time, but we can't. We just can't anymore, and they appreciate hearing that and why we're doing what we're doing.
Well, it also strikes me, Andy, that you're the type of person, you have a good sense of humor, and you're very real in conversations, whether it's with your colleagues, and certainly it sounds like it's the same with your staff. And I can say I think staff more and more really appreciate a leader who is willing to make himself or herself vulnerable and just be kind of a real person. So I really like that approach that you mentioned. So that segues to, we're trying to, as leaders, we're trying to create a culture for our leadership team and our employees to be caring and to be communicative. But ultimately, what we're really trying to do is make sure that culture translates into a great service environment. And so when we talk about the credit union difference, you started out your career on the banking side. You've spent most of your career now on the credit union side in the credit union industry. But what is the credit union difference? How do you see the credit union difference in terms of how that plays out serving your members?
Yeah, people ask that a lot of times, and I always try to find something that blows people's pants off that you've never heard of before. But on the credit union difference, it really is, and what has rung true for me, which I enjoy, and we're able to drill down to our staff, is when you look at the member side, they're not investors. So we can focus on all 90,000 of them, not say 3, a family, or 10 of them, or whatever the investors may be. And that allows us to not have to hit quarterly numbers, and we don't have to hit quarterly investment numbers. And so that allows us to now think extremely long-term as an organization. And so we can look at a 2 or 3 year plan that the project, the product, the service, whatever we have, may not make money for a little while, and that's okay because it's the best thing for the member and for our staff. So we have, for instance, we know that we can't afford to do internal R&D type stuff, and so we've actually invested in or bought companies or QSOs, 4 of them in the last 5 months. So stuff like one, and I'm going to do a little bit of bragging here or talking about a product, but Member Pass from CU Ledger, we just rolled that out today, actually, and that is one that, in our belief, through the blockchain technology and the security it can give to our members, it's something that is they can't get elsewhere, and banks won't invest in it. And at this point in time, and we're able to bring that value to our membership because we have the ability to think long term and do things out for years to come, as opposed to just the next quarter or the next year.
I love that. I love that commitment to being innovative and investing in unique types of service. And I am sure that as you've done that, there are a bunch of things that you do that don't necessarily work out great, and then every once in a while there are some home runs. But that's the nature of innovation and risk taking. Yeah. I love that. So here we are. I think, in my opinion, we're starting to feel like we see light at the end of the tunnel with the COVID pandemic. Certainly, we've been through some difficult economic times, and we're still in times of uncertainty, and with the presidential election, all kinds of things are going on. But when you look at just the service environment in northern Michigan and the needs of your members in this economic environment, I guess what has been unique in terms of how you've had to approach this and do business, and where do you see things headed now?
I laugh about this one because I've been screaming the sky has fallen since roughly March 13th. Now we better be prepared, and this is going to be a rough year. We need to tighten our belts and everything, and via stimulus, let's call it what it is, via stimulus, we haven't seen that impact, and I know that's happening industry-wide. Delinquencies are down, loan volume, we're hitting record loan volumes because people are buying toys and boats because they can't go on vacation. And so we're seeing low delinquency with high loans. And it's something that you asked me 120 days ago, or told me it's going to happen 120 days ago. You're missing it. You're keeping your head in the sand. So we haven't seen a significant issue. What we are like a lot of the industry, we've now grown year over year over 27%. And most of that's been since March because dollars are just coming in. So we're trying to get loan dollars out as quickly as possible, and investment dollars the rates are so low we can barely find anything. It's almost better to put in our mattress, just like our members are telling us. But in the future, or coming forward up here, depending on where the stimulus package goes, it's delayed right now, politics or whatever. If there isn't something, we are expecting a tough year in 21. So we've started up the budgeting process now. We expect loan volume to drop off by probably 20 or 30%, and we're expecting some delinquencies. Just had a planning conference with our board this last weekend, and but we had a long discussion about that they wanted to watch delinquency. Like that's fine. You want to keep it low, but how low? It's going to drive up, and there's some of the stuff is out of our control. We'll do what we can, and they got that, which was great. We have a fantastic board that understood that, but that is something that we're preparing for around here. Is for that some dark days ahead. That there's some clouds on the horizon, but long term, we are still committed to and invested in growth. Both physical and virtual. So talking with the board, we truly believe in physical growth. Branches will be smaller. We built a branch. It just opened last November, and it's about 1,800 square feet, maybe 2,000. So really a small branch in the whole scheme of things. And we also went to ITMs. So the interactive teller machines, we have 2 inside and 2 outside. So we don't have a traditional teller line at all. And it's going to this type of model where now we only have bring in 2 or 3 employees, and they act much more on a personal basis and talking about Friday night's football game and helping with issues than just doing normal teller transactions. And so we envision that as our future, and we'll continue to look for places to put smaller branches, a smaller footprint, but understanding that people like to have a physical location just in case there's a problem, and that's how they pick their financial institution. But we have to have virtual too. That's the tough part that we're in now. So you have to invest on all sides. And I talked about fintech briefly just a minute ago, but that with the fintech, that's where we believe in it, is that we have to find a way to do that fintech and get that type of product out to our members, because they demand both sides.
Those are some great perspectives, and they do seem to echo a lot of the things that I've heard from your colleagues. The old saying, hope for the best and plan for the worst. I think there's so much uncertainty that maybe it's more along the lines of hoping that we can at least keep things as good as they are right now and plan for things getting a lot worse, because I think everybody feels like next year is going to be a tough year. And you mentioned the deposit growth, you mentioned the fee income from mortgage lending. I think for the most part, credit unions' financial statements are going to be pretty good this year. But as you look to next year, I think you're very wise to think in terms of tougher times ahead. Aside from that, when you think of financial institutions in northern Michigan, what's unique? Because you have a heavy reliance on tourism. But what is it that really makes the economy click in northern, lower peninsula, and the upper peninsula?
Yeah. So. Well, we find we are heavy in tourism, but we do have a good industrial and actually technology, specifically in the Traverse City market. But we have a lot of gig economy is the best way to say it. People are finding a way to work from home, and people are finding a way to do their own thing, be a consultant, a one-person or two-person company consultant that they can work from up here. And so Forefront has been involved heavily with a lot of communities and being able to promote that and bring that level in. Now, what we do have up here, which is interesting, is just small communities. So we have to put branches in communities that have 6,000 people total. For instance, Grand Traverse County, the largest county here in northern Michigan, has 90,000 people in the entire county. That compares to Warren? That it's a third of the size of Warren, maybe.
Right.
And so competing on that aspect, we have to find ways to try to be more efficient and help people out in those communities and meet those needs. But all in all, it's a good membership base. They're loyal to who we are. There's a lot of checking to see, are you from here? They don't like to deal with people from downstate because they like to deal with their friends and neighbors that they see in the local store. So we've been able to do well with it. It's definitely different than living in Detroit or Grand Rapids, but we like it. I say we, my wife and I, and we are happy to be up here.
I hear you also alluding to some of the trends that were already playing out fairly significantly, and they're just being accelerated, like the move to remote service delivery and mobile banking, and like employees' desire to work from home. And so maybe talk for a minute just briefly about the work from home issue. How does that affect Forefront and credit unions in northern Michigan? Are you finding that more of your employees kind of hope that they're going to be able to continue to work from home, and how are you going to approach that?
We actually we brought everybody back in the office in mid-June, and a lot of that was because that they started screaming. It's a strong word, but they just wanted to come back. I didn't work from home well. They banished me to the basement when I was at home, so I'd walk 3 miles in a circle in the basement on conference calls. So we didn't have anybody in the office, so I just came in the office to work from here. And then people caught wind of that, so then a lot of questions, hey, can I come back in too? I do not want to be around my husband, or I don't want to be around my wife. Can I come in? And so we did a lot. We did a lot of work to make sure that we had cubicles spread out. A lot of people were in offices. So we did a lot of stuff to make sure that people were safe, and we were able to bring everybody back. But then on the work from home basis, that nobody wants to go back home for an extended period of time. Everybody wants that hybrid model that we all like. So you work from home a day or two a week, and you're in the office and get that camaraderie that you want in the office and keep that culture going. And so we're evaluating that, trying to figure out what the proper fit is for Forefront and how to make that work. In northern Michigan, specifically, we struggle a bit with broadband fiber. And so we have problems with folks that just their internet just flat out doesn't work well, and so they're trying to use a hotspot off a phone or something like that. So we are working to try to get with the local communities and bring in broadband and bring in fiber, but it's going to be a long, drawn-out process. So it'll work for some, it won't work for others, and we'll move on from there. But overall, I do believe that's what we're going to be, is in a hybrid model when it all settles out.
And it sounds like you're on one end of the spectrum, but you talk about the hybrid model. I do think you're right. I think that the idea of work from home and how broadly to apply it is going to be something that virtually every business is going to experiment with and adapt based on the reaction from employees, the impact on productivity, and so on. I don't think credit unions will be much different, except for the fact that credit unions, because of their branches and their member-facing services, they have to have people in the office or in front of members more so than many other businesses. Well, let's shift over to the personal side to wrap up. You have that beautiful northern Michigan country. I know you like the outdoors and you love golf and other outside interests. Just talk a little bit about your outside interests when you're not working 12 hours a day.
Actually, I spend a lot of time working on people with needs, both internationally and locally. So I've been involved with Big Brothers Big Sisters, working with at-risk kids here, as well through Rotary, World Community Services. And actually, I was just talking with Brandy, for your Brandy there, about getting involved in Y Cup or some of those projects. And so that is one passion of trying to do financial literacy and helping people come up. But on a truly personal side, I like golf. I don't know how much it likes me. Dave, you and I have been out a number of times. I think we're kind of in the same boat. Just recently bought a cottage. So we live right in town, Traverse City. So we bought a cottage down on Bear Lake, down by Manistee, and that is we're figuring out what that looks like, to be able to get away for a little bit, have family and friends together on the lake, on the boat, and just relax. So we're figuring that out. And then I've got a daughter who just started college and a son who just started driving. So the demands on my life have shifted significantly. And I used to do a lot of triathlons, ultra marathons, stuff like that, and I kind of fell out of that as I was driving kids around the state to watch soccer tournaments, and looking to get back into that. Probably next summer we'll start getting back into that aspect and doing some running and some biking and just trying to get fit.
Well, with all of that, I have to say, when I read your bio, I was impressed with one thing that stood out, a project that you were very proud of, being involved in helping to establish a micro-lending program focused on women in the mountains of Guatemala. Maybe you can comment on that a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm part of the World Community Services Committee with Rotary here in town, and we're one of the larger Rotaries in the land. So we have some resources that some others may not. But there was a lady by the name of Marilyn who she's very passionate in micro lending. So she brought me along because I'm passionate about it too. I've always looked at it domestically, but she's found her way up in Guatemala. So way up in the mountains of Guatemala. I have not been there yet, but they found some. People that subsistence living is what they're doing, and we were able to give. So with roughly $20,000, we were able to bring up two communities with roughly 200 women that we gave small loans to, that were able to start little shops of their own, start little trinkets and things like that, and sell them. But the cool thing is, when COVID hit, and it hit Guatemala hard, they actually shifted, because they had the money, they shifted over to food. So they were actually they had the money to get the seed and do everything to provide food for their communities and their family, and still make a little bit of money on it all. So this micro lending has been fantastic, and it truly is a game changer and a life changer for not just them, but for generations to come when you get there.
Well, Andy Kempf, I have to tell you, this has been a great conversation. I've learned a lot, and I admire some of those stories and some of the things that you're talking about in your personal interest. And one observation I'll make, as a relatively younger, everybody's relatively younger compared to me, but as a younger credit union CEO, I feel like our credit union industry is in great hands as many of the rest of us start thinking about retirement. To have leaders like you who are so well traveled, so much experience, and so much commitment on the personal side to doing good. It's very impressive. So thanks for being on Friday 5 with me. I really appreciate it. It's been a great conversation.
I appreciate the offer. Thank you. Yeah. Have a great day.
Well, thanks to Andy Kempf, CEO of Forefront Credit Union, for a great conversation. As we discussed in the interview, the credit union has grown at a phenomenal pace, 27% year over year to now it has 700 million in assets and 90,000 members. It's the largest, not just credit union, but financial institution in Northern Michigan. I was impressed with Andy's emphasis on delegation and empowerment and communication with team members, having actually committed to a daily communication with his team during the COVID crisis. Lots to appreciate and learn from Andy Kempf. And as I said in my interview, I think our industry is in good hands with young leaders like Andy running very progressive credit unions like Forefront. Thanks for listening to Friday 5 with Dave Adams.